So, do you think you're going to vibe code your way out of vendor lock in with some big SaaS product that's too expensive? Apparently, a lot of people think that that's a thing. Maybe it's because there's an overburdened CEO AI derangement syndrome going on, where somebody says, hey, we can get rid of this big software bill by doing vibe coding because we know how to do that. So I would ask this question if you're the CEO and someone's bringing you this idea. We're spending $8 million a year on this software license subscription to this big thing in the cloud, and we can see how to vibe code that, and it'll be great. And it'll be free, maybe. Will it be free? Here's a couple of things for you to think about. First of all, risk. This is an enterprise architecture perspective. IT transformation projects can go a long way down a dangerous path before anybody notices. First of all, who do you sue? If you're working with a big software as a service vendor or a big software on-prem vendor, one of the things you're doing is you're offloading the risk of something going wrong. If that software as a service thing takes a wrong turn and you're suddenly $100 million out of pocket, who pays for that? How do you mitigate that risk? A big way to mitigate that risk is in your contract with that software vendor. They will accept liability for defects in their product. Where will that liability go if you write your own? I suggest you talk to your insurance broker, your auditor, and your accountants and ask them what they think about that question if you decide to vibe code your HR system and get rid of that expensive external thing. What level of risk would they be willing to take? What questions will they ask to determine just the mechanical risk of the software not working as expected and causing some kind of reputational or financial loss? You might be substituting a big software bill with a big insurance bill. That probably isn't what the vibe coding fans have in mind, but that will come as you go down that path. The second thing to think about, who is going to unplug the existing thing from all of the things it's connected to? Your security systems, your financial systems, your operational systems, all of the other things in IT, your networks. How are you going to replace all of those integrations, all of that interoperability, which is working today at some level? How will you replace that connectivity when you unplug the expensive product from somebody and plug in your thing? That is a significant project. It's what we call a transformation project. It ought to be organized by an enterprise architect who understands how these things work and can explain the risks of that and the costs of that to you. A third thing to think about, also very important, is data governance and governance and compliance in general. Your software vendor has spent a lot of money, hopefully, doing a good job, hopefully, of protecting you against things like privacy compliance, SOX compliance, things that software needs to observe. Personal information, credit card details, customer records, transaction records, billing records. How will you be sure that the data in your vibe-coded app is going to be governed to the same level of confidence that you're getting from your vendor? Are your vibe coding team thinking about that? My experience working in leadership roles in big companies for many decades is that people in the software development world don't think about stuff like that unless somebody tells them to. And then they have to be reminded regularly because it's just not something that their tribe is too bothered about day in, day out. They have other things that are more exciting. But you will have to do that before your vibe coding thing becomes a real thing. A fourth thing to think about is who is going to maintain and evolve this code base? The AI agents? The team who did the vibe coding? Are you going to keep it up to date with prompting? Really? How will that actually work in practice? If I was speccing a transformation of an existing big corporate system to the next version of whatever that was, whether it was from a different vendor or on development of the thing we have, I would be putting a lot of design things around it about interoperability, but also about maintenance. I would need to know, how am I going to fix this thing if it breaks? If something stops working, who do I call and what will they do? How is your vibe coding team going to be able to deal with that? If the fault in the code is because of a prompt that somebody wrote last year, where's the record of the connection between that prompt and the executable file that just stopped on one of your most important servers? How do you know what to fix? Just a few questions for you to think about before you jump down the vibe coding rabbit hole. There are a lot of great things about AI. It is not the second coming of Christ. A fifth thing for you to think about, also very important, is the financial condition of the AI industry right now. This week, we are expecting IPOs from SpaceX, from ChatGPT, probably from maybe Anthropic very soon. And we're going to find out what these companies are really worth according to the market. We also know that, and you know because you're starting to get higher bills right now for your AI usage, that the cost of that AI token to the company that's providing it to you is a lot more than you're paying them for it. And that is a short-term price that you can't rely on going into the future. If the cost of the vibe coding work goes up by 10 times, order of magnitude, which is where the pricing memos that I'm getting in my email are starting to suggest about some of the existing tools, is that vibe coding thing going to be as attractive as a long-term way of managing software as it is at the current prices? Another risk. How will you hedge that bet? How will you lay off that risk? Ask your insurance broker. Ask your auditor. Make sure you understand the risk environment of going down paths like this before you just go charging off into the sunlit uplands, which may be sunlit or may be on fire. Find out before you go too far.